This is Paul Foster doing my final video recorded interview with Elizabeth, a DUI client. Hi Elizabeth, how are you?
I'm doing good.
I'm Paul, nice to meet you. So I'm just going to have you take a seat right here, sitting right here. Do you have any trouble finding our office?
No, it's pretty good, yeah. Thank you.
So it sounds like you're coming in here. I'm a criminal defense lawyer, so it sounds like something's going on. So let me just talk to you about what this consultation is going to be about, just some general information before we talk about specific stuff here. So first of all, everything that you talk to me about is going to be confidential. Even though you haven't hired me yet, we have an attorney-client privilege. You know what that is?
Just confidentiality and stuff like that.
It just means that everything you tell me is confidential, and I'm not going to tell anyone anything that you talk about. The only information I would reveal is if it was helpful to you in the case if I was judge or something like that. Everything that you tell me is between us. So what that means is, in order for me to be as effective as I can be, I just want you to tell me everything that you think might be important, because the more information I know, the more helpful it's going to be. So I'm going to be taking notes during this. This is just for my own, so I organize my thoughts, and if you decide to hire me, that my notes for preparing my case file and whatnot. So that's going to be okay with you. Okay, and so there's no consultation fee for this initial appointment. If you decide that you want me to represent you in your case here, then we can talk about the fees further. Does that make sense? Have you talked to any other lawyers about what's going on in your case today? You ever consulted with a lawyer about anything? Never been to court before? Okay, well, if you end up having to go to court here, I'll talk to you through the entire process. Okay? Do you have any time constraints? We have an hour set aside for this. If you have any other questions, so why don't we just start with, I saw that my secretary said that you had been arrested for DUI. So why don't you just tell me a little bit about what happened?
I was out one night with my friends, and I just had a long day at work. My professor, and I'm a teacher at a school district over in Milwaukee, student teacher, and it had just been a really long day. We had both the superintendent and a professor coming into my classroom, in addition to my guest teacher who's overseeing everything. And so afterwards, I just really wanted to just relax and be with my friends and just watch over the day, which had gone really well, but it was just very, very stressful. And so we went pub hopping over in Fremont. Probably, I think we started around 5:30. We got food first. And I think I had maybe 6 drinks over the course of the night. And then towards the end, when everyone was kind of leaving, I was trying to decide how best to get home. I only live like about 5 blocks away from it. And I had parked right outside. And I didn't expect to get that drunk that night, because I never do. I never get that drunk. I'm normally just so busy with school and with work and just commuting everywhere that I just never have time. So I thought, I'm only living 5 blocks away. I think it'll be okay. And so I drove home, and I got pulled over about 3 blocks away from my house.
So you said you're dealing with your superintendent and whatnot, so you involve a lot of pressure in your job. So that's why you're out drinking. You don't drink very much. Have you ever gotten a DUI before?
No.
What day was this? Did this happen?
It was a Friday night. It was February 20th.
Pretty quickly. So you're pulled over about 3 blocks away from where you live. What's your address?
It's 5112 Third Avenue.
On the place that you wanted to go. What was that like?
It was a bunch of different places. I remember that at first we were at Dubliner, but there was, I think we put about like a few days before that night.
So we'll go back to what happened, beforehand, but let's talk about the police stop. So you were pulled over. Can you describe how the stop happened? About
Yeah.
like the officer turned the lights on.
Yeah. She pulled me over. I can't remember what her name was. It was either Officer Stone or Stern, something like that. And she pulled me over because she said that I had a rear light off. When my brother and my mother and I picked up my car the next day after it had been impounded, the light still worked. So I don't know what happened there. And I received a ticket for that in addition to that. But she pulled me over. She said, you have a rear tail light out. Can I see your registration and your driver's license? I really panicked just because I had been drinking. And I was just worried. It didn't sound like that she pulled me over because I was swerving or anything like that. It was just for the tail light. So I gave her my ID. I couldn't find my registration documents from that current year, so I gave her my old ones, and I apologized. I left them on, my dining room table. I was really flustered because of that, and I probably was slurring my words pretty bad.
Yeah, most people are really flustered when they get pulled over. Even, I've been dealing with cops and everything, but even when I get pulled over, I'm just like, oh my god, what did I do wrong? So yeah, I can't imagine anyone that's not nervous when they get pulled over by the cops.
So I once she kind of saw that I was intoxicated, she asked me to step out of the car. She had me do all the I don't know what they're called, the drunk test, but not the breathalyzer.
Guilty riding test. So when you say she saw that you were intoxicated, are you assuming that you felt like you probably looked like you were intoxicated? So you felt like as soon as you started talking to her, you felt like you were doing the sounds at that time. It sounds like you remember pretty well about what happened.
Yeah, I think the details are a bit fuzzy, and everything was moving really, really fast.
And do you remember? I don't have police yet. On this case, do you remember what time you were pulled over? Approximately.
It was really early in the morning. It was past midnight. I know I left probably around 12:30.
Yeah, so police officers definitely like to pull people over for little reasons like that, broken tail light, but that's just the reason that they pull you over. So that will definitely be something that we can take a look at and stop. So she saw that you were intoxicated. You said she asked you to step out of the car. So wrong.
What I can remember, I know I was walking. She had me walk around on the white line, like right before the crosswalk or the sidewalk. It was really dark. We'd been pulled over into an area that didn't have really good street lighting. I do remember that because I remember all I could see was the flashing lights of the police car. And so she asked me to walk in a straight line on that white line, but it was really hard for me to see, and there was like kind of just stuff on the ground, so I think I might have stumbled a couple times. And I told her that, and so she had me like stand on one foot, which I was able to do. She had me do some other stuff that I can't remember off the top of my head. But for the most part, I was able to complete them pretty well. And then she asked me to if I, would submit to a breathalyzer test, and she said that it was voluntary. So I asked her, since I had done okay basically on all the other ones, if I just could lock my door and just walk home from there since I was so close to home, if that would be okay. And that's when she started saying, okay, I'm going to walk down for the test, and so she had me walk on the list and she put the cuffs on her head.
So, the thing where they had you walk on the line, so they call that the walking home test. So let's go into a little bit more detail about the test. So she had you she did the walk and turn. You said you stumbled a little bit on that one, and obviously with the legs, they're probably trying to play lights on it's hard to see. Do you remember how level the ground was? Was it totally level, or was it like at a curve, an angle?
I do remember that like there were trees, so the pavement itself was a little like going into the road. There was some of the bumps from the roots, and I know that there were like some I think they were bottles. It might have been bottles of Tians that because I just remember it ringing when I accidentally hit them, and I was just so nervous that also kind of just flustered me there.
I think you did the one-legged stand and did that one already. Mm-hmm. So one of the other things that officers will commonly do in a DUI situation, it's kind of a big fancy name, but it's called the horizontal gaze and stagnance test. And so if you've ever seen like videos of cops holding people on top and all that, when they're shining that flashlight in your eyes.
I remember that. Yeah.
Okay, so why don't you tell me about that?
I followed the light. I thought I did fine on it. I really couldn't. She was just very stern with me, so I had no idea if I was doing something wrong. With all of the tests she gave me, she just kind of brushed whatever comments I off and just had me go to the next one.
Did you ever mention anything about what they do when they do this test is they're looking for clues, specific little things that happen with your eyes indicate the other influence. They say, 4 or 6 clues or 6 or 6. Do you hear any numbers said? That's sometimes they do that, sometimes they don't. They just say it themselves. They don't always say it. It doesn't really matter. It's just sort of more for knowledge.
She was pretty quiet most of the time.
And then she asked you if you'd submit to the field breathalyzer test, and she said it was voluntary, and did you decline that, or did you say, did you ask, tell me what you did there?
She said it was voluntary, and I said, in that case, is it alright if I, go home and, if I promise, if I just pay for the ticket for the tail light, and I turned my car off at that point, so I couldn't even tell if it was working. I said, if it's voluntary, can I just, promise that this isn't going to happen again? You can write me up for the tail light. I live 3 blocks away from just go back to my house.
So, in terms of saying, I promise that won't happen again, think back real hard. Did you make anything did you say anything the officer might interpret as being sort of an admission that you were, did you say, Did you say, I promise it won't happen again, or you frankly, I promise I won't make you try it again?
Yeah, I definitely said that like that.
That's okay, that doesn't mean that you're shot yet, so don't worry about that. It sounds to me like it's pretty ambiguous. Okay, so the officer,
It started with an S.
Officer Stone or Steiner? Okay. You said it was a woman?
Yes.
And so she arrested you, and did she do any kind of frisking in you?
No, she just handcuffed me.
Okay. You feel like what did you feel like the meal was? Did you feel like she was professional, or was she?
It just felt. I mean, it was just really scary. She was just very brisk. She read me my remembrance. I just kind of stayed quiet the entire time. But she really didn't talk. She just kind of, she pushed me a little bit.
Now, did she read you your Miranda rights? I'm assuming she read you those Miranda rights after you said, I promise. So they took you down to the police station, and so I'm assuming that they had you perform the breathalyzer test there. So tell me about that.
I was a point of mine.
Did you have any problems during the breath test? Did you have any maybe it was your weekend, the workplace?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and so did they book you down at the station, or did they cite you in the?
I was booked there.
It is a little unusual that they would put someone on first time for July.
I know I've gotten like speeding tickets before.
Yes, speeding tickets should keep you in. So it must be that officer didn't want to release you for one. And okay, so and then they set a bail on you. How much?
I can't remember. My mom.
Okay, so what was that the very next morning?
Yeah, first they put me in a small personal cell, like I was in the cell, and then after all the stuff.
Did anything happen while you're in custody there at the police station that you thought alarming or anything? Just kind of go back to jail. Yeah. Tell you I know that. So let's go back to what happened here that day. So you said you're really stressed out because of what happened at work.
Yeah, I mean it was a good stressed out. Because I'm in my final year at undergrad education department. And so I've been teaching at this at Dickinson Middle School for the last 6 months. And it had just been, me and my supervising teacher in the social studies classroom. And that day, my professor said that he was going to come, watch me in the classroom. And it just so happened that it also ended up being the same day that the superintendent of the school district was there too. So it was super stressful because both of them were in the classroom at the exact same time. The kids were not having a good day, so they were just being really rowdy. But I managed to get them settled we had a really good, lesson plan for the day that I had made. Afterwards, Mr. Ogden, who's the guy that was supervising me, said how great of a job that I did. Um, and even like I heard later that from my professors that he thought he thought I did really well. So it was just it was just like an emotional taxing day, and one of the things that I'm just super worried about is I really look up to Mr. Ogden, but I know that his son. I heard through the grapevine that his son had been killed in a car accident where a DUI, the person was intoxicated before, and so like I know that. Well, I actually don't know what my rights stand in terms of like, will they find out about it? Is stuff at university, like, is that at stake? I just don't know. And that was kind of like the thing that was like really stressing me out when I got pulled over, is just because like I know Mr. Ogden has been like personally very involved with making sure that no one with a DUI is ever hired at the school, especially I think it was a school teacher who was convicted. So
I can understand why you're really concerned, and I want to tell you that you're in the best position you can be right now. There's definitely options available if you have what your needs are in this case. I can definitely understand your concern about police possibly finding out, Mr. Ogden finding out. And so, DUI is one of the things that I do in my entire career doing it. So I promise you any available option was what to use in this case. Now I know this might seem like kind of superfluous questions, but they're kind of important just because they go to how much I can drink there. So do you remember during that day? I know you were really stressed out, so maybe because you were stressed out, you weren't eating much. Do you remember what kind of food you were consuming that day? Like what your meals were that day? Did you have lunch regularly, or did you skip meals?
I do normally like skip meals a lot, just because I'm in such a hurry to get out the door that I don't always have time to eat meals. But I think I was able to. I think it was a cookie sandwich that I had that day, and an apple, and then I got a soda from and cheese. Fridays are the day where I'm at school for the entire day, so and then I ate, when I met up with them.
Did you have a lot to eat, or was it just a little bit, just kind of bar food?
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
You said you had about six drinks. Were you buying those drinks yourself, or was someone buying them for you?
A few of my friends bought them for me, and actually I do remember that later on I ate something, because I think it wasn't dips, but it was something close to that, where it was just like kind of just a little tiny restaurant that just did burgers that we like kind of went into later on in the night. So I did eat later on in the evening, but it was as soon as I saw my friends, they'd already purchased like some fries and that I was eating, and as soon as I sat down, they had drinks for me,
So that night, do you feel like that's about average for if you're doing all your drinking? Do you feel when people eat less, they tend to feel the effects of intoxication a lot more? Do you feel like you're eating less normal, or more so than average?
I guess for Friday night, I think I might have eaten more just because I think I munched on people, like, someone would order fries at one place and then I ordered chips at another, and then munch on all of them. I do know that at one point in the evening I actually did have my own burger that I finished. So I guess it feels like less, but I think since I just kind of snacked the entire evening. It might have been more.
And so you had 6 drinks between 5:30 and probably a little past midnight. Do you remember how those drinks were spaced out throughout the night?
I think I had a beer and a shot at the first place I went. I think roughly on average I had about at least one drink at every pub that we went to. So I went to about 4, yeah. That'd be about right. And then I think I had an extra shot at the first couple of places that we went to. Because I'm kind of like that where it takes a while for it to kind of kick in. Actually, it's really weird where it's like I remember hearing this like in psychology somewhere. But like when I just like smell it at first, like I feel tipsy, and then it just kind of wears off. So and then like after that, it takes me a while to get drunk again. So I normally go harder in the beginning. And like I said, it had been a long time since I had drank, so it really did kind of hit harder.
Is it fair to say most of your drinking was early on in the night?
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't have gotten into my car had I felt like I could get there safely. And I would never have gone like on the highway. I think definitely if we were never in I would have called a taxi. But I think especially just since it was so late at night and everyone else was leaving and they were grabbing taxis to go places that were like in another completely different direction. I didn't want to stay out like by myself waiting for a taxi.
Fremont's a nice neighborhood. I live in myself, so it's kind of one of the safer places, but I can understand I'm a guy, so I probably don't have this perspective. So you said you don't drink very often. How would you characterize your drinking? Would you say you drink kind of how you did maybe once a month or once every 6 months? Or?
I would say once a month. And it ranges because there might be like, I would say there's only once a month where I actually get, like tipsy to the point of drunk. I've never blacked out before. But I would say like there might, I can think of maybe once or twice, maybe within the last month or two where I, just had like a couple glasses of wine when I, get my friend's house on the weekend.
And so I have one question, and I'm no way suggesting that this is a possibility, but I ask all my clients because it would be important to the case. I'm not suggesting that you would be a person that would have to have gone through something like this, but it's kind of the question I ask. Have you ever gone through any kind of alcohol counseling or been evaluated, had any kind of drug or alcohol evaluation, anything like that?
It's in like a personal evaluation because it's like I've done like lots of programming, like because I'm in a sorority and I like for job stuff, especially like dealing with kids. Like I've gone through just programming for alcohol, but I've never been like evaluated or subjected to personal.
Yeah, I'm thinking more on like where a professional talks to you about your daily habits and evaluates you with an opinion as to whether or not. Another probably kind of strange question, but it has to do with the walking tone test. Do you have any kind of I know so you don't look like you're physically disabled, but if you have any kind of like joint problems, any kind of disability that would affect your ability to perform the walk and turn?
No.
I'm assuming the officer Stone probably asked you that before you started the test. Right? Well, let me just. I think I have, all the information I need, to give my assessment of the situation. So let me just, summarize for you, make sure you left out. It's really important. So, it was the 20th on Friday, so 10 days ago or so. So you had a really stressful day at work. You had superintendent and supervisor visiting the class. You've been a student teacher for the last 6 months. And so you were very stressed out because your students had kind of been having a rough day. But you went through that and it turned out well enough. So that evening, because you were really stressed out, you went to hang out with some friends. Went down to the Fremont area to do some pub hopping. You got there at about 5:30. You said you had about 6 drinks over the course of about 6.5 hours or so. So roughly one drink an hour. But you had more drinks early on. You said you had a beer and a shot right at the start. And you were only 5 blocks away from where you were leaving all your friends and taking taxis to go home. How many friends were you out with?
We had some people leave and others keep going on. So I'd say we had no more than maybe about 7 people throughout the entire night. But sometimes it was more, sometimes it was less. By the end, there was only about 3 of us left, and 2 sometimes I didn't. I guess it would have made sense just to
Don't, every time we get into situations like this, we always replay in the head what could we have done differently. Going forward now, though, I think you're in a good spot. I mean, this is only the first time you've ever had anything like this happen. So, we'll definitely get you through this, and you're in good hands. So don't worry about too much about, what you could have done in the past. Let's just think about what we can do in the future here. You said people came and gone, people came and went. Was there anyone specifically that was with you the entire night? Do you remember?
I can definitely say it was Leslie and Sarah, but Sarah came a little bit later because she was getting off work. But we're all 3 of us are pretty close.
Don't worry about the contact info for a little bit. So let me just continue summarizing. I just saw a point where I thought it was you lived about 5 blocks away, and you were driving home. You got pulled over about 3 blocks away from the pub, the 3 blocks. And so you were pulled over. The officer said, "Pull you over for."
I think it was the last time.
So the next day, when you pick up your car in town, you thought it was fine. So that's very important. We'll leave that to the side. Never been pulled over for DUI before. Never been arrested at all. You have no criminal history whatsoever. So it was Officer Stone or Stern that pulled you over, woman, and you gave her your license, and you didn't have your current registration. You just left the current one at home. You gave her the old one. You kind of went around for it. It was very stressful. I don't think anyone should be being pulled over. They're under the influence or not. So you give her the registration, pretty flustered, and said that immediately she could tell you were intoxicated. So she asked you to step out of the car, and she wanted to perform some field sobriety tests. Did she ask you if you wanted to perform, or did she just tell you that you had to do it?
I think she told me.
Okay, so she didn't tell you that they were wrong. So you did the walking turn down the line, so you stumbled a few times, it was really bright, and the slip to the ground was entirely level into the tree, so it caused some bumps to the pavement. You said there were some weird things that were...
Yeah, it's something that made rattling sound.
Okay, so definitely not good passer through the walk. You did the standing on one foot, you had no problem doing that. You did the horizontal gaze and stagger test with the flashlight. It's really hard to know whether or not you did okay on that, because obviously, I mean, sometimes they'll say something, but like, they're not actually looking to whether or not you can follow the flashlight, but they're looking as to how your eye follows the flashlight. And if you're under the influence of alcohol, your eyes sort of like you won't follow it through like this. A person who's under the influence can't even know whether or not they're doing it. So it's really hard to tell whether or not you actually did well on that one. But so the officer giving comments as to that. And you turn down the voluntary field breathalyzer test, which is a good thing. They're really voluntary and they're really inaccurate. So it's a good thing that you didn't do that, and I recommend you never take that ever if an officer asks you. And also the we'll look for that part. And you told the officer when she asked you to do the field breathalyzer test, so they had to walk home, walk to the car, and you weren't sure whether or not, you thought maybe the officer could have interpreted that as being like
I know I was specifically said, this will never happen again.
You thought the officer was doing very brisk in her job, she was just really going through the situation probably was the officer, she read you Miranda rights after she asked you about the formal breath test. She read you Miranda rights and then she told you to go under arrest for DUI. But you had handcuffs, you down the station, which was, there wasn't anything really that happened down at the police station that's really noteworthy other than you said you were really going for myself. And that's just me. The breathalyzer test is in the 1.09. There wasn't an incident. Breathalyzer test. Then your mom picked you up, she bailed you out. You had about an average, well, it sounds like you ate too much during the day because you were really stressed out. You had a turkey sandwich and an apple and soda from the coffee machine. But when you're out drinking, maybe some bar food, some yes, the bunch of buying the drinks. And so the officer gave you a citation. You remember when your arraignment date is? Did you happen to know that?
Is that when they call me in for the?
It's basically your first appearance in court. The very first time you ever go in front of a judge. And so this is generally, there's not a whole lot that happens there because this is your first time to DUI. They're not going to go in there and look at your history and decide that they need to hold you on bail. It's already posted bail. It's kind of complicated how it works, so I'll spare you the details. But basically, it's just the very first hearing where they read the charges against you and determine whether or not there's probable cause to charge you with a crime. And so if you blew a .9 on the breath test application, that will be enough for them to go forward with charges. But other than that, they just release you on your own personal recovery. And so if you decide to hire me, I'll just be representing you at that arena. There won't be a whole lot that happens with that. That is the very first time, and that'll be the first opportunity. Well, I won't get into that just yet, so we don't talk about your options. So we want to keep an eye on that arena. If we miss it, then we say, I don't want to do that. You don't want that to happen. So you told me about the concerns with your employer finding out, you don't want them to find out that you've been arrested and charged with DUI, because there have been some killed by the driver. How long ago was that?
Just 2 years ago.
So you're definitely concerned about the employer finding out about what happened here. So can you tell me, other than that concern, what your other major concerns are?
I think that's my primary one. I mean, since I'm in my last year, I love that school. I would love to get hired there. But even if I'm not able to get hired there, just, what does that mean if I'm applying to it? Does that mean like I cannot be hired by anyone because I have a DUI? I think that was
Okay, well, so at this point, you've only been charged with a crime right now. If you haven't been convicted of anything, if they were to ask you on like questionnaire for an apartment, or employer might ask you, have you ever been convicted of a crime? So it's only just an accusation. Because this is the first time that history, there's a number of options that you can pursue in terms of trying to reach your goals here. So let me just tell you a little bit about what the process is going to look like. So I told you about the arraignments. And so after the arraignment, you're going to want to make sure you have counsel for this. I'll tell you about some possibilities you might have before you even go to your arraignment. But let me just tell you what the general standard process is. You're going to go to your arraignment, you have the charges that are against you, you have, if I'm representing you, I'll enter myself with you if I get that. And at that point, I'll have an opportunity to investigate the case in terms of looking at the breathalyzer test, whether or not it was performed technically correct. So that will involve me interviewing to perform the breathalyzer to change it and whatnot. Will also give us an opportunity to look into the stops that you were pulled over for the taillight. And so whether or not your taillight was actually broken, the officer pulled you over, then that could cause us to fight this. So that would be something that we will look into during our investigation. Some other things we look into is we want to talk to your friends who live through the entire night and find out how much you drank and whatnot. And so generally at first time DUI, how those are resolved, if you were to strike a plea deal, prosecutors in this jurisdiction will generally offer you a deal for a normal charge down to something like a driving or reckless driving. And so the reason for that is it avoids what's called, in this state, they have a medical jail time for conviction. The first time is 24 hours jail. And so that avoids that, and it also avoids the DUI on the record. But that's sort of further down, and that's usually generally if you don't feel like you'll have any success at trial. The other option down the road is, if the prosecutor doesn't want to offer a plea deal, or if you don't want to take that plea deal, if you want to fight this case, what that will mean is we'll do all our investigations and we'll go to trial. And the process for that, if you're out of custody, probably won't try to get to trial as quickly as possible, so that'll probably take around 6 to 9 months to resolve your case if ultimately it goes to trial. If it goes to trial, though, I'm not saying that your employer would find out, but all of these things are public record, so if someone were to see you at the courthouse or to watch you in the proceedings, they could conceivably go to the court. And if someone were to run your name, well, they wouldn't be able to see it in public records because you have not. But if someone that had access to court records internally would be able to see it in the court. That's the first option. Brought a little option sheet here to sort of show you about what's going on here. So option one is trial, and so the advantages of that, the advantages of going to trial here is that it's basically gonna hold the feet to the prosecutors, hold his feet to the fire. I'm trying to think of the saying right here, and it's not rolling off my tongue. So it puts the burden on them, and so they basically will get all the constitutional protection in this case. So that will allow us to test the state's case as far as how strong, whether or not the stop is legitimate, etc. But basically, that one has the greatest chance of basically getting your case acquitted, basically. The disadvantages for that is if you take the case to the jury, no matter how strong and how weak the case is, you never quite know what the case is. In this state, generally, it's very hard to win at trial on a DUI, just because they have the breathalyzer test, which came back to 0.9. And so in this state, if you have a breathalyzer result above that, it's called per se intoxicated, and the only thing that the state has to prove to the jury is that the breathalyzer was performed correctly. They don't even have to look at whether or not you're actually appearing to be under the influence, or whether or not you're actually not, whether or not it's effective. Even if you get below 0.08, they can still actually try you and convince you. They just have to convince the jury that you were impaired by the alcohol. So it's kind of like a higher burden. So it's very hard to win DUI trials in this state. But that is one of the options, and we'll have a better chance. We'll have a better evaluation of this option after I've done some investigation in this case. So these are not something. This is not something to get precisely right now. I'm just going to tell you what the various options are. So the second option, what I said, is what's called a plea agreement. And this is how a lot of DUI cases are resolved. If what the prosecutor can do, depending on how strong the case looks at trial, is they'll offer them a lesser charge, and ultimately that's going to result in no jail time. There'll probably just be some time on probation. It will go on your record in the criminal conviction or if they negligent driving in the first year, that's also a crime. So it's going to result in having a criminal conviction on the record. That's going to be something that I'm assuming is probably very important to you. The advantages of that is it's very, very poor. You'll know exactly what sort of conditions the prosecutor wants to impose on you before you say yes or no. And in this case, he's likely going to have 12 months, and he'll probably want you to get what we talked about before, an alcohol evaluation. So you don't sound like you don't want alcohol. So it'll probably just be a doctor saying, "Oh, she's fine." That'll be that, and maybe you'll have to take like a class. It sort of teaches you about the impact of drunk driving on the community. So the advantages of that is that it's predictable, no jail whatsoever. What don't happen when the person has a mandatory jail. The disadvantages, though, is that it will result in a conviction. So having a record. I guess I would also say a disadvantage for the trial. It's also going to be a little bit expensive. It sounds like if you're talking to me, you probably don't qualify for a public defender, so it does cost a little bit more money for the trial. It takes time to investigate the case, to the trial and whatnot. This is going to be less expensive. So as part of the plea agreement, there are some fines involved, which are probably in the range of about $1,000. Another option, we have what's called it's going to sound like a big word, but it's basically called a stipulated order of continuance. So what that means, on your first offense, the prosecutor, what they'll do is they'll just say, we're just going to continue this case. We're not going to resolve the case, but you're going to have to go complete all of these conditions, like engage in a drug and alcohol evaluation. Basically, all the stuff that I talked about in pre-trial. Sometimes they'll throw in a little more onerous conditions here, and it usually lasts for about 2 years. And as long as you stay out of trouble in those 2 years, do all of the conditions. After that time period, you will go in front of the judge. The prosecutor will say they've done all the conditions. Which means you will not have a criminal conviction on your record. So the disadvantage compared to the pre-trial plea, though, is that the conditions are generally they usually have you do a little bit more. You know, ask if they're doing some sort of alcohol free classes, you don't have problems like that. They'll ask you to do that anyway, just because they want to make sure that this never happens again. And also, you're going to be on a long probationary period, 2 years. So probational period means it's going to require you to check in with the probation officer periodically. In this case, it's probably not going to be too often. So they're not going to be too worried about you. But what most importantly means, though, is during that 2 years, you have to abide by those conditions. You have to abide by those conditions. One of those conditions, if you don't violate. So I'm not worried about that because you don't have any history, so I'm going to stay out of trouble. But for other clients, I know if they have some history on their record, I wonder whether or not they can really get that 2 years without getting arrested again for DUI or some other offense. Any offense that you get arrested for. This doesn't count trafficking as a part of it. Actually, you get arrested for another criminal offense, then what will happen is they will hold you back to the court and they will revoke this. And part of one of the conditions of getting this agreement is that you have to stipulate the disability of the patient. So what that means is they'll hold you back in the court, they'll revoke it, the judge will leave the police report, decide there's enough facts there, and you'll be convicted, and you won't have any opportunity to file. So basically, by doing this, you're giving up the possibility of going to trial. In your case, I wouldn't be worried about you being abide by all conditions, but it's definitely something to keep in mind when you do something like this. So this is not something that would happen if you did a free trial plea agreement. You'll be on probation still, but if you mess up, they'll probably just call you and say you're in violation of the conditions, like issue sanctions or something like that, which we'll get into next week. But that's sort of the advantage and disadvantage of those options right there. I guess the last option here, which is something that if you want me to represent you, I will try to do regardless of what the option is. But I just call it informal resolution. And every once in a while this happens, it doesn't happen very frequently, so certainly don't feel like this is something that should happen to you. But you haven't been arraigned yet, and so depending on when the arraignment is, I can go ahead and find out possibly some cases, and ask if there's some sort of resolution you could have for you and the prosecutor feels like because of the minor circumstances. In the future, how important it is for your employer to find out about what happened here and the fact that there's no history whatsoever. Seem like an outstanding citizen, perhaps the prosecutor might be able to not go to jail and decide these things and I will it doesn't happen very often. Depends on who the prosecutor finds the case, but that's something that I'll definitely pursue, regardless of what option I'll follow after this. I'll definitely do this. So the advantages of this, there's no disadvantage. and what this means is money whatsoever. Do those four options make sense to you about what's going on here? And so even though there are four options, you don't have to decide which one you want to get, want to go to. And even if you decide you want to go here, you can still pursue these and decide you don't like it, and then that's always an option to do. So how are you feeling about the things here? Which one do you feel like?
I mean, I don't, with everything else that's going on, I'd rather not, pursue the situation. I'd rather just, try and come to some sort of agreement, whether it's, doing service or I'm going to, taking in probation officer, getting counseling. I'd rather be doing that.
Okay. So I definitely agree with you guys here. I think that's kind of a good option for you, especially if you've identified before. There was another thing. A little bit of time left before we end the interview here, and what's going to happen going forward. So one of the other things that you're going to want to keep track of is separately from this process right here. There's another process, sort of the administrative realm of licensing. When you get arrested for a DUI, that information gets sent to the Department of Licensing, so they will issue you a suspension of your license 20 days after the arrest. So the 20th of February, so probably have just under 2 weeks left before that suspension takes effect. And so if your license is suspended, that means you can't drive, and if you're to pull over, that means your license is charge. And that's certainly something that's going to, even though it's a different criminal charge, it's going to matter when it comes to future resolution of the case. It doesn't feel good when you're not following the law after your license is suspended. And so that's an administrative process. It's entirely separate from the criminal process, but from the licensing visit. And you'll probably get some paperwork in the mail that will look something like this. And so this doesn't happen automatically. It'll happen automatically if you don't respond, but you have the option to request a hearing. And so you'll have to request a hearing for that if you want to fight that. And that's something that you can be represented by an attorney with at a hearing like that. And the standard of proof, it's kind of like a mini trial, but the standard of proof is a lot lower. And so what an attorney will do at that hearing is to try to test the factual basis of your license. And so, given the evidence that you told me about the test and whatnot, that may or may not be successful, but it's certainly well within your rights to request that hearing if you want to do that. It's a little expensive, $375. And regardless of what happens, if you were to be convicted of, if you were to come to a resolution here, if you were to do a plea agreement of reckless driving or negligent driving, or ultimately be convicted, your license will be suspended anyway. So even if you win at this hearing and then you plead to reckless driving, the license will get suspended anyway. So they sort of give you credit for the criminal suspension if you're under administrative suspension. So I believe it's a 90-day suspension. I'll have to check that out. I don't know if it's 90 days, but it's going to happen 20 days after the date of the arrest. And so if you go through that entire suspension and then you are convicted of DUI, reckless driving, negligent driving, they're not going to suspend you. So the benefit of the DUI hearing, it can be limited depending on where your criminal case is going. But certainly, if you decide that you really want to fight this case in the criminal court, if you don't feel like you can do it, certainly will fight it as the administrative order to work. This causes all sorts of problems. So keep in mind that path. Said non-representing. Talk about it as far as what you want to do. And if your license does get suspended, if you decide you don't want to do a hearing, you can do what's called an interlock license. And I can tell you about that, more about that. Sure, take that back. It will allow you to still drive. So other than that, I think that pretty much sums up, what's happening in this case here. Do you have any other questions about what's going to happen?
I don't think so. So moving forward, this side of things is what we primarily be covering, and this would kind of just be something like that to me that I can kind of handle on my own things with it.
Yes, you don't have to have representation of this, so certainly during the hearing process, it's going to look kind of like a mini trial, so if you're representing yourself, it's going to be kind of difficult navigating the process.
Okay.
But that is also something that I can represent you on, of course, the fees that go along with it. So you'll have to sort of waive the cost benefit for yourself.
Okay.
Do that. So going forward here, there's not a whole lot you'll have to do. Make sure you don't get picked up for another DUI, because that would ruin that for you. Your license gets suspended, make sure you're not driving around with a suspended license, or put that in your interlock, so that way you don't have a driver's license. Only charge here. In the meantime, I will explore the administrator as far as the factual basis. I'll talk to the prosecutor and come up with some sort of formula whatsoever. But in the likely case that does go forward, which is usually what I would expect to happen, I'll be there for you and we'll talk further about that. Do you have any questions? Okay. Well, I think that concludes our interview here, so we'll just walk you outside.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome.